Hello everyone. Thank you for attending our webinar here jointly with Avalara and Webgility. All right, it looks like we have a full audience here, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So in this webinar between Webgility and Avalara, we're going to talk about e-commerce tax compliance, and today is December 11th. A bit of housekeeping before we get started. Today's webinar is going to last for about an hour, and all dial-in participants will be muted until the end of the presentation. Any questions that you have can be submitted via the question screen in the GoToWebinar dashboard. You'll see over to your right there are different panels within the GoToWebinar area, and you'll see questions, and go ahead and put your question in there. And then after Avalara and Webgility present, we will have a Q&A forum at the end of the presentation where we can have some active questions. So today's presenters are myself, Allegra Mitchell. I am the Customer Success Manager here at Webgility. And we also have Jordan here, who is a Sales Manager from Avalara.
Hello, everybody.
So the agenda for today's webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about sales tax. We're going to give an overview about why it's important to be tax compliant and talk about challenges and how sales tax is calculated. Then we'll go into Avalara and also AvaTax. You'll see Webgility and our solution within the eCC desktop, and we'll have a brief demo about how that works real time. And we'll talk about sales tax automation within eCC desktop, and then switch over to Avalara AvaTax to see how everything happens on the back end. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jordan, and he can talk about sales tax for e-commerce and challenges.
First off, the challenges around sales tax for e-commerce businesses are the same as any other kind of business. There are some specifics that need to be addressed for e-commerce companies, but overall, the challenges of sales tax are just that, the challenges of sales tax. Now, the first challenge of sales tax is nexus, and that's where to register to collect and remit sales tax for your organization. Now, there are multiple different ways to determine your nexus, but the easiest things to know are that if you have an office or a warehouse in a state, you have the requirement to collect and remit tax. That also goes for having an employee in a state. And that employee can be doing anything as simple as answering the phones, or maybe you have a developer developing for your e-commerce site in a different state. Now that can establish nexus for an organization. After you've determined where your nexus lies in the different states, you then have to start looking at the rates to actually charge to all your individual customers. There are over 11,000 different tax jurisdictions in North America, and roughly in any given year, 20% of them change in one way, shape, or form. Now, whether that's a rate going up or possibly going down, or a boundary change, or maybe a special taxing jurisdiction being applied to a certain area, or maybe expiring for a certain area. These are all different things that need to be addressed in terms of the right rate to charge your clients. And then after an e-commerce company determine the rates they're going to be charging their customers, they have to figure out how they're actually going to keep them in their system and make sure they're up to date and they're actually updated in a timely manner. After a company's gotten all the rates figured out and how they're going to handle that, they then have to look at product and service taxability. Now, not every company is going to have product or service taxability challenges. Let's say you're an e-commerce business and you sell tables and chairs on the internet and you have to collect sales tax in 5 states. Well, you probably don't have much of a challenge around taxability of your product and service, and the reason why is because tables and chairs are going to be considered taxable to all taxable customers, and you just need to know the rate to charge your clients. However, let's say you're an online retailer and you're in a state like New York and you sell clothing. Well, now you've got a product and service taxability challenge. And I use this in particular because it's a great scenario of how taxability can be a huge challenge. In New York, if you're an organization, or if you're a company that is a clothing retailer and you sell a shirt for under $100, that is considered a non-taxable transaction at the time of checkout. However, if you sell a shirt that's over $100, that's then considered a fully taxable transaction And you have to know those different levels of thresholds for dollars for clothing, and you have to know how to actually handle it inside of your system. So that's just one example of taxability challenge for an e-commerce company. An e-commerce company that sells downloadable software would have huge challenges. Maybe even an e-commerce company that sells a medical device or supplements. The list goes on and on. The next challenge is tax exemption certificates. Now, you might say, well, we're an e-commerce company. We sell mostly to end users or businesses, and they're going to pay us sales tax. And that might be true. But if you do happen to have any exempt customers, you have to determine a way actually how to collect their exemption certificate and keep it on file and make sure it's up to date. And that can be a huge challenge for some organizations. So definitely worth notating. And this all kind of boils down to sales tax returns. We like to call it the most dreaded job in accounting. And the reason why we like to call it that is because you're always under the gun to get them done every month. And if you get them done on time and done correctly, well, great. You've spent a bunch of time doing a task that adds absolutely no value to your organization and only introduces risk. Now, if you've got someone good in place at your organization that's doing your sales tax returns now, that's great, and I'm sure it's working out for you. But what happens if that person decides to move up or move out? Well, that means that the liability of getting those sales tax returns done on a monthly basis is going to fall back into the lap of a CFO or a controller or maybe even an owner of an organization. And as we all know, that's not a good use of time for a high-level employee to be doing a non-revenue generating activity that's only introducing risk for your organization. Now, companies usually take a step back from all these different challenges that I went over, and they ask themselves, how can we cost-effectively manage all the compliance and risk associated with sales tax, and maybe even look towards automating it so we can get it off our hands as much as possible? And that's usually when they come looking for a solution like AvaTax, which is what we offer here at Avalara. And Allegra, if you don't mind. Thank you. So Avalara, who we are. Now, the best way to understand the story of Avalara is actually the story of how we got started. Now, back in the late 90s, our founder built a sales tax engine for an organization that had nationwide nexus requirements. And what he learned when he did this was that if he could create a tax engine that was accessible via the internet, and it could plug into basically every shopping cart you can think of an ERP accounting package, he'd have a great solution for small and medium-sized businesses. Because really, the only way to automate sales tax when he was doing this was with expensive on-site software that took tax professionals such as himself to maintain it, keep it up to date, and then it took IT to keep your servers up and running so your tax engine worked. He knew as long as his tax engine that was on internet or cloud-based could handle all the different facets of sales tax, including calculations, taxability of products and services, and handle returns, that he'd have a great solution for the small and medium-sized business market. He also knew it had to be as easy or as plug-and-play as possible, so small and medium-sized businesses could get up and running quickly. Well, needless to say, he kind of hit the nail right on the head. Avalara has been one of the fastest-growing private companies now in the U.S. for the past few years, and we've now become the largest sales tax service provider in North America by customer base. We have over 200 different connectors or pre-built integrations into different e-commerce and accounting package ERPs, including with QuickBooks. We happen to be, with Intuit, the maker of QuickBooks, we happen to be a gold-level certified developer, which is their highest level of developer, and we are the only one that is a sales tax service provider. We also have integrations with numerous different accounting packages, as well as a lot of the popular carts on the market, and obviously with Webgility. Now, not going to go into much more detail about us, but I will say that we are now the largest certified service provider for the streamlined sales tax, which means that our AvaTax solution is basically rubber stamped in 24 states around the country, meaning that the states provide us with the rates for our customers to charge, as well as the taxability determinations. So you can be rest assured that in 24 states in the country, you're basically bulletproof in case of an audit in terms of sales tax. And just so you know, we're doing well over 1 billion sales tax calculations now for our customer base year over year, and we're handling over 500,000 tax returns every year for our clients. So that's a little bit about Avalara, guys.
That's amazing. Well, thank you, Jordan, so much for that breakdown about sales tax and about Avalara itself. So now I'm actually going to go into Webgility and who we are. Webgility, we're actually headquartered in San Francisco, and we have our development and support centers in Indore, India. We have thousands of small to medium-sized businesses customers worldwide, and we're also Intuit certified, and we have been since 2007. We're also partnered with the top e-commerce platforms, shipping providers, and hosted QuickBooks providers such as Right Networks. And we also have hundreds of web designers, developers, pro advisors who also promote the Webgility's suite of products. And our suite of products are eCC Desktop, eCC Cloud, and ShipLark. So now I'm going to go into the solution and kind of what eCC Desktop is. And it's able to bring all of these things such as your online store, Avalara AvaTax, and QuickBooks together in one place. So eCC Desktop automatically pulls in orders from your online store. With the connection with Avalara AvaTax, AvaTax can calculate the tax for an order correctly as soon as it's posted to QuickBooks. With eCC Desktop, you're also able to process shipping with shipping providers such as FedEx, UPS, WorldShip or UPS Direct, Indicia, and Stamps.com. When the order is posted to QuickBooks, not only can Avalara AvaTax calculate the taxation, but it will also, eCC Desktop will also create transactions such as a sales receipt or an invoice within your QuickBooks company file. After you do the shipping, we also have a solution where you can send the shipping information back to the store and communicate with your customer through that bit of information as well. And if you have a lot of products or you want to keep track of your inventory, eCC Desktop is able to synchronize inventory and look at the inventory levels in your store and in QuickBooks and balance them out. So how does eCC work with Avalara in terms of calculating the sales tax? Well, I have two images here. The first image is of the inbox here, and I'll show you all of this kind of real time as I go into the demo. And the second picture here is showing after the order has been posted to shipped out, posted to QuickBooks, and Avalara AvaTax has calculated the tax right here. As you can see, there's a discrepancy between the taxation that was taken in the online store and the correct calculation that Avalara AvaTax has done within the order after it's posted to QuickBooks. And here is a picture of an actual transaction within QuickBooks and how the information that Avalara has done within QuickBooks is displayed on the transaction. It's a fast and easy connection, an easy way to set up. So definitely within the eCC Desktop, there's a way to connect your Avalara information, such as your account number, license key, company code, that all information that is stored in the back end of Avalara AvaTax, and bring that within eCC Desktop. So now I'm actually going to go into the demo, and are there any questions from any of our audience members before I actually go into the demo of eCC? This is a good question here. Does Avalara AvaTax work with eCC Cloud? Thank you, George, for that question. eCC Desktop is currently the only product we have that works with Avalara AvaTax. We're looking into expanding that within our cloud product, but right now it's based within our desktop product. Okay, so now I'm actually going to go into the demo, and here is, let me know when everybody can see my screen.
Hi, Allegra. This is
Yes.
Brenda from Webgility as well. I'm actually monitoring some of the questions that our attendees are asking. There is a question from Lisa. Jordan, if you can answer that, that would be great. I think it's more specific to AvaTax.
No, I see the question about Lisa. I figured we might wrap it up in the end, but no, let's get it addressed right now. Lisa, if you're already an SST registered organization, you can absolutely make us your certified service provider. We can transfer over the certified service provider information. Well, actually, it says you don't have one, so we could become your certified service provider pretty easily. I think my information will be thrown up at the end of the presentation today, and we can discuss this further. But no, we have numerous people that have registered for the SST and then later chosen to use a service provider such as Avalara. So that's your answer.
Great, thank you. Any other questions we should get to before I jump into the demo?
There's another one from Andrew. The question is, I have QuickBooks Enterprise and using Webgility to sync my online store Pinnacle Cart. Pinnacle Cart has Avalara integration. Do I need to have both the integration with Pinnacle and Webgility?
That's actually a really good question. Well, since you have Avalara already connected to Pinnacle Cart, you know that at the point of sale, that tax is being calculated correctly. So by the time the taxation gets into QuickBooks, the work has already been done. Thank you for that question. All right. Any other questions that we can get to now, or?
It looks like we're ready to go, Allegra.
Okay, great.
We'll answer the questions as they come, guys.
Okay, great. So I'm going to jump into the demo here, and what you're seeing is the dashboard of eCC. And this dashboard, this is where kind of you get a high-level glance at what's going on. So you can view your products, you can view your orders here and their levels here, but most importantly, you can get orders. So getting orders is the function of eCC downloading the orders from your online store and putting them here in the inbox. As you can see, I've already posted a few orders to QuickBooks, so I'll be posting this particular one to QuickBooks and showing you how the tax is calculated, this one, and showing you how the tax is calculated with Avalara. But before I do that, I really want to show you how eCC Desktop is connected to Avalara AvaTax. So for that, I'm going to go to the store configuration within eCC Desktop that shows how to get this process started. So this is the eCC configuration, and within this area, a user will set up the intricate settings of how eCC connects to their online store and to their QuickBooks. And online store meaning the data and settings from that, and from QuickBooks meaning the type of transactions that eCC is going to create in QuickBooks. But for this webinar, I want to go over to the taxes area. And this is where the magic happens, where eCC Desktop connects with Avalara AvaTax and begins this whole process. So within the taxes area, we have 4 options. If your store does not charge tax, you can select the first option and move on. But we have an option to use Avalara to calculate taxes. You can always learn about Avalara. If you don't have an Avalara account, we have a link for you to learn more and actually create a test account with Avalara so you can see this process as it starts. And Avalara can also be utilized within an eCC trial as well. So if you have a trial of eCC and you need to get a trial of Avalara, those two can work together as well. So eCC Desktop connects to Avalara AvaTax by utilizing the account information and the license key. And I believe the license key is given via email when an Avalara account is created. So that license key information will be available there, and you should grab it from there and put it in this particular area. The company code, when you have an Avalara account, you can actually create a company, and that company can have a code. And so this will be the company that eCC Desktop is interacting with in terms of tax calculation with Avalara AvaTax. If you are using an Avalara AvaTax account, you can click this area here. And if you also want Avalara to not only calculate the taxes, but utilize their address validation to calculate taxes to get a deeper, richer tax calculation, you can do that as well. And so once you put in that information, you can test the connection, and it'll connect right up. And so after that point, eCC Desktop has now been connected to Avalara. And we know this because the item, this is the line item for taxable orders. This is where Avalara is actually calculating the taxes at the simultaneous posting to QuickBooks. So Avalara is going to be the taxable tax item for taxation. And of course, if you have any non-taxable orders, we have an out-of-state, or you can create an out-of-state tax item within QuickBooks to show any out-of-state or non-taxable orders. And in case you don't know, when Avalara is calculating the taxes, it has to commit those taxes, so a final rubber stamp on that tax calculation. And there's committing to taxes rules. So you can decide to commit these taxes and say, okay, Avalara has calculated these taxes, everything is correct, let's go ahead and rubber stamp that as completed. So we have an action to say if you would like to commit those taxes automatically during posting to QuickBooks or posting to store. That's again sending the tracking information to the actual order in the online store. Or if you choose don't commit, that means you want to actually go into Avalara in the back end and commit your taxes that way one by one. And when we get to that portion after the demo, Jordan can kind of show that interface in that process. Okay, so Avalara AvaTax is now connected to eCC Desktop, and now I can begin having Avalara calculate my taxes. So for that, I'm going to go back to the dashboard and to the inbox. So I want to take a deep dive into an order and show you what an order looks like in eCC before Avalara has calculated the tax. So as you can see, this particular order here, order number 635. My online store has calculated taxes to be 33 cents for this particular item. And as you can see, Avalara AvaTax is listed as 0 because AvaTax hasn't calculated the tax yet. So now, in order for Avalara to calculate this tax, I'm actually going to post this order to QuickBooks, and you will see that eCC will create a transaction, and you'll see this value for Avalara AvaTax change. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I'm actually going to look at an order that Avalara AvaTax has calculated. So we have one right here. And for this particular order, Avalara AvaTax has calculated $4.33 for this particular order. And as you can see, the order in the online store, the tax has been calculated as $4.95. So we're actually going to view this order in QuickBooks since Avalara has calculated that information. So for that, we're going to retrieve the order within QuickBooks. Here's my QuickBooks here. And here is the Avalara AvaTax as a tax item right here in the transaction within QuickBooks and the correct calculation. And as you know that there was a slight discrepancy between the tax that was calculated in the online store initially and Avalara's AvaTax calculation here. So we can see this discrepancy here as express tax amount undercharged 62 cents. So even the discrepancy between what the online store calculates and what Avalara AvaTax is calculating at the time it's posting at QuickBooks is also shown as well. So since Avalara has calculated this particular taxation, I would actually want to turn it over to Jordan so he can actually go into a deep dive about how this works within Avalara and show you some of the different functions and features of Avalara AvaTax for the calculation of taxes. So I'm going to switch it to you, Jordan, and make you the presenter.
So this is our online dashboard. This is how you actually interact with our AvaTax solution. When you log into our dashboard, you hit a home screen, what we like to call a landing page. It gives you access to service notices and account alerts. It's actually going to give you a small summary of your sales tax liabilities right here. And then down below, it's going to give you access to training guides and training videos and our support group right here from the home screen. Now, when you log into our dashboard, let's say that customer had called you up after a tax calculation and asked, hey, how'd you come up with that calculation? That seems absolutely incorrect, too high or too low, or whatever they might ask. Well, you come to our Transactions tab. Our Transactions tab is actually a reporting tool that will allow you to see any transaction you've ran through our system going back over 7 years. Now, it defaults to the current day. So I happened to run a transaction earlier today. This document code is Canon would be the name of the company in this case, and these last digits would actually correspond to your invoice number. That's how we catalog. So it's easy to find a transaction if it was earlier in the day. When you log in, see your bill to, ship to information at the top of these 4 boxes, and you have other applicable information for a calculation below. And down here, you have your line items. So I had used a technology example earlier today, but basically what I'm going to show you here is we have an item called a big computer here, and it was tied to a tax code, O with 7 zeros, or other. What actually happened here is our system didn't recognize what that item was. And when our system doesn't recognize what an item is, we're going to default the tangible property fully taxable to all taxable customers. And the reason why is because the best practice for our customers. If you're when in doubt, you should tax it. So let's just show you how this works. At this address, 2310 North Hollywood Boulevard in California, there are 3 different taxing jurisdictions that apply. We've got a California state tax with 6.5%, got an LA County tax of 1%, and then we've got an LA County Transportation Commission tax of 1.5%. We went ahead and automatically assigned all those to each line item. We flagged this item as fully taxable because, remember, we didn't recognize what it was, and we returned the tax due per jurisdiction over here on the right. So pretty simple process how that works. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you how we handle taxability here, and this will make a little bit of sense after I'm expanding upon what I talked about during the challenges of sales tax. So this next line item, a Digi 001. Now Digi 001 is tied to a tax code for computer software that is pre-written or canned and electronically downloaded. And the reason why is because Digi 001 is the line item code I use for downloadable software. So these same 3 taxing jurisdictions apply to this item, but if you work your way over to the right, you're going to see we do flag this item as non-taxable and return $0 tax due on the invoice. And how we do this is all through this tax code. Now when you set up your AvaTax account, you go through a process of mapping all your different product and service codes that you might offer to our tax code so you can ensure proper taxability is being applied across all the states that you collect and remit sales tax into. And once you're set up and mapped to these codes, you never have to worry about whether or not your product or service is taxable in any of the states that you collect into. So that's our Transactions tab. It's very granular. You can print this out. You can screenshot it, send it to your customers. Chances are you're never going to hear back about how you came up with the tax calculation after they've seen this level of granularity. So that's a transaction inside AvaTax. Now I'm going to jump back to the Organization tab. I actually skipped over it. Organization tab is where you set up your company's sales tax profile inside of AvaTax. Now, as you can see here, I've got a parent company with multiple subsidiaries, so we can handle complex corporate structures. We find, especially in the QuickBooks world, that usually organizations are just a parent company, but I do know that companies do have subsidiaries or spinoffs, and we can handle them inside of our system easily. I'm going to go ahead and jump over to Nexus jurisdictions. I'm going to show you how easy it is to start collecting sales tax in a new state, or actually in a new country even if you need to. I clicked into Nexus. What you see here You see a list of the 80 different countries that Avalara can help do VAT and GST calculation and remission for. I'm going to go ahead and click into the U.S. though, the top here. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a list of all the states and territories here in the country with checkboxes next to them. So if you decide that you need to start collecting in the state of Georgia and the state of Florida, you can come into our system. You can literally click a checkbox next to the states, and you can save it. Once it's saved in our system, you're always going to calculate tax for any invoice that comes to our system that's being shipped to either one of those states, and will apply the proper taxability rules, if applicable, for those invoices. Now, you still need to go through all the formality of getting registered in a state to collect and remit tax, but it's this easy to start collecting tax in a new state with our AvaTax solution. Tax codes, tax rules, and items. This is where you take your different product and service codes from your website and from QuickBooks and map them to our tax codes. Not going to go into too much detail on it, but if you, or when you sign up for AvaTax, you are required to have a call with our tax code expert where we can go through any questions you have about how your particular product or service matches up exactly to our tax codes and get that all set up properly. And the reason why we do that is because we want all of our clients to be properly taxing their clients when they're using an automated solution like AvaTax. Exemptions, if you have any exempt customers, you manually input them into our system. Here, we will automatically notate $0 sales tax due when they invoice from you, and we'll notate that in our system so we can properly file the tax returns for you. So that's the organization tab. As soon as you've got your company's sales tax profile set up, got your nexus selected, and you're mapped to our product and service codes you need, you're always going to calculate tax properly in our tax engine. Now, here's the last piece of the puzzle, tax returns. At the beginning of every month, you log into our system. You pull up what we like to call a liability worksheet. What it is it's a state-by-state level detailed report of all your previous period's liabilities. Let's go ahead and jump into California here. So it looks like in California, got a monthly, which is actually a prepayment to the state of California. And then we've got a quarterly, which is actually your sales tax return to the state. So it looks like, let's look at the sales last month. Looks like we had $114,000 in sales. Of that, $91,150 of it was taxable. And that created a liability of $7,975. Now, if you work your way over here to the right, you're going to see that we automatically calculated the 90% prepayment that's due to the state for you. And if no adjustments need to be made for prepayments or prior payments, you literally just approve that amount from a drop-down right here. You're going to work your way to the bottom. You're going to have a full liability amount listed right here, and you save this worksheet. Once this worksheet is saved, you have an ACH account set up with Avalara. We pull that exact liability amount from that account, and then we create, file, and remit your returns for you on your behalf. Now, we guarantee to do returns on time and correctly in the proper format, and if you're privy to an early filing discount, we'll make sure that that is credited back to you, and we provide you with full documentation of all of the returns that were filed on your behalf. We also can handle any notices that you might receive from the state. You forward those our way if you get one, and we'll handle that as well as part of the solution. So that's a pretty simple walkthrough of our AvaTax solution and the dashboard and how it all works on the back end. Like Allegra showed you, we're integrated in with Webgility. We can take any calculation that would happen on a website that's not tied into our solution and calculate the proper rate that should have been charged, notate that in our system, and have it paid properly to the states on whatever filing calendar you're on. That basically concludes what I want to show. I know we've got a lot of questions. Allegra, what do you,
I'm actually looking through a lot of the questions, and We've got some questions that really relate to Avalara, and we may want to unmute one of our users, one of our attendees, that has many questions. Let's see. Well, we have the questions here. Let's go through one of the ones. She's asking, we only have Nexus in one state, but one of our vendors is requiring us to have tax-exempt certificates in any state they ship to, and for us to avoid charging sales tax. So now we have a sales tax reporting obligation in many states. Would AvaTax be good and affordable fit?
Okay, great question, Lisa. Let me guess, your vendor's probably a drop shipper, and you have a drop shipment arrangement with them where they are shipping to multiple states that they have Nexus in for you, but you don't have Nexus there, so therefore they don't have an exemption certificate on hand. The proper way to handle that scenario is get registered in all the states where your vendor is going to require you to pay tax on any order you make from them, and in turn present them an exemption certificate that shows you are an exempt reseller in their state, and then charge your end users tax with a solution like AvaTax. That is the right way to do it, absolutely the right way to minimize extra cost to your organization. Now, some companies don't decide to do that road. Some companies decide to pay the tax and eat their margin, and some companies decide to try to get their vendor to let them let the company that's actually the seller collect the tax, but then have the vendor pay it. Doesn't work out very well usually. But the right way to do it is exactly what you're saying. Get registered in all those states, present exemption certificates for all those states to your vendor, and then in turn collect tax and remit it for all of your clients in those states.
Great. Thank you for that question and that answer. I have another question from Ken. He's saying they don't utilize eCC to enter their orders. All they utilize it for is transferring it from BigCommerce into QuickBooks. So he's asking, is it possible to use Avalara so that customers who buy on their BigCommerce site are charged the correct tax at checkout, so before the order hits eCC?
Unfortunately, Ken, we do not have an integration with BigCommerce. BigCommerce and us have been in talks at length, and I would encourage you to voice your opinion that integration with AvaTax would be great, because the more support we get from their actual users, the more they're going to push us up in their timeline to actually make an integration happen. So currently, the best way to do it would be to integrate AvaTax with your Webgility installation, calculate sales tax through our system right inside of Webgility, and then have it post up in QuickBooks so you have all the proper notations and all the proper discrepancies notated, so you have your accounting correct. That is the right way to do it right now.
Great, thank you. Wonderful.
And Ken, we have, just so you know, I didn't want to interrupt you, Ken, we have numerous customers that use BigCommerce and have our solution installed to help them with remittance and to make sure their calculations are correct. If you want to discuss this further, please just reach out for us.
Great. And on that same note, is there an extension for the Magento shopping cart?
There absolutely is. We are a gold level developer with Magento for their shopping cart. We have hundreds of users of our Magento shopping cart installation on AvaTax. It's an incredibly robust integration. It'll get you everything you need in terms of the tax calculation and all the information back into your shopping cart in a timely fashion. If you have some more interest in it, please reach out for us.
Great. So, I'm getting a lot of questions in terms of, can Avalara connect with a particular shopping cart to calculate the tax before the order gets into eCC and posted to QuickBooks? So, again, if there's a shopping cart that cannot integrate with Avalara AvaTax, this is where the solution within eCC can be best utilized. So you know that when the order finds itself into QuickBooks and is posted to QuickBooks, that the tax calculation is correct in terms of the accounting, and of course that discrepancy is shown.
I mean, in some cases, though, it might be great to have not only in your shopping cart that we do integrate with, but also in the middle with Webgility if you like to do a lot of order manipulation, or maybe you do tax included off of your website. So that's something else to keep in mind.
Great. Is there also tax calculation for purchase orders?
We integrate inside of QuickBooks. We integrate for sales tax calculation inside of sales orders, estimates, credit memos, and invoices. Those 4.
Okay. So purchase order is not an option. That's good. That's fine.
No, purchase order is not an option.
Okay. Okay. Wow. We have a lot of.
So sorry to interrupt. This is Brenda again. I just want to also add to the purchase order question. eCC Desktop does do offline purchase order within the application. So if you integrate with AvaTax through eCC Desktop, you can also process your offline orders from eCC Desktop there. So that is another option.
Right. Exactly. So as to kind of reiterate what Brenda said, eCC can create, let's say, a sales receipt and a purchase order at the same time, or an invoice and a purchase order at the same time. Great. Are there any other questions? Let's see.
I saw a couple. I'm cruising through them too. You guys are definitely on top of this more than I am, but I'm cruising through some questions, and I've seen a couple mentions of QuickBooks POS. Currently, AvaTax does not support QuickBooks POS. We have numerous ways to be able to facilitate you getting your POS information into our system, so we can help file your sales tax correctly with any other aggregate data that you have for sales. But there is no direct integration with QuickBooks POS, so I just want to make sure that that's thrown out there, because like I said, I did see it a couple times in the questions.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the underpaying or the overpaying. So since eCC, when it's connected to Avalara AvaTax, displays the underpaid or overpaid amount on the transaction, what do they do with the difference?
Well, when you extrapolate out numerous orders with our proper sales tax calculations based on a latitude and longitude assignment of an address, other than just using a zip code like say a big commerce website would use, you're going to find that you'll have overages and undercharges, and you'll probably get closer to 0 than you think, but you will have to determine what you're going to do with those discrepancies as a whole in your accounting package. As far as Avalara would be concerned, if you were using Webgility to correctly calculate sales tax on all orders you've made, then you are correctly filing your sales tax back to the states, and in terms of an audit, you are in good shape. But you will have to figure out how you're going to properly account for any overage or undercharges you're going to have on a monthly basis, or however you're going to close your books.
It's a very good answer and a very good question for that. Thank you. Great. So, we've got about 10 more minutes until the end of the webinar. We can still take some questions. One thing that I do that I would like to announce is, there's a special for attendees today. So there's a special offer for our customers to celebrate the partnership between Webgility and Avalara. So what we're going to do is we have a half-off activation of AvaTax and 1 month free of service when you buy the full service calculation and return with Avalara. And that offer is good till February 28th, 2014. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, Allegra. Hey, we got a great question that just rolled in. I was at the very bottom, and it just rolled up on my screen. Why would you have an over or under calculation of sales tax is the question. Great question. Well, the normal way that sales tax was handled, and the normal way sales tax is handled in a lot of e-commerce shopping carts is through zip codes. Zip codes are not designed to calculate sales tax. Zip codes are designed to deliver mail. So why you end up with over or under calculations when you use a sales tax engine like AvaTax is due to the fact that a zip code has been assigned a rate inside of an e-commerce shopping cart that is actually incorrect because that particular location is actually in another jurisdiction for sales tax compliance. So say you have, here's a great example, parts of Metro Colorado. There's a suburb called Littleton. There, on one side of the street, you're at 4%. At the other side of the street, you're at 8.25%. However, they share the same zip code. Why is that? Because of the way the zip codes are done. They aren't actually there to dictate the sales tax that needs to be charged. They're there to dictate how the mail is delivered and how the addresses work. So that's how you end up with improper sales tax calculations, because you're using something that was not designed to calculate sales tax in a zip code instead of using a latitude and longitude-based geotag that we use to help calculate sales tax for all of our customers. Can you use, another good question, can you use AvaTax to give our international customers estimated duties and taxes? We cannot do the duties in some of the cases, or actually a lot of the cases, but we can handle all VAT calculations for all of your customers in a list of over 80 states now, actually. So if you want to go into your scenario a little bit further, that'd definitely be something you want to reach out for us on. Sales tax is due on the 20th. Does Avalara file returns on a set date? You actually do have to approve your liability worksheet that I've shown here on your screen by the 10th of the month. The reason why it's approved by the 10th of the month is because we need to know that you signed off on the scenario and that everything has been done on your end. After the 10th and its approval, we will pull the funds on the 12th or 13th, and then we will immediately start filing for you. And the reason why we do that is to ensure that every customer that has the potential for an early filing discount is credited back. And we will, like I said, guarantee that all your returns get done on time and done correctly. Okay, actually, there's a follow-up to that question, and I actually didn't go into much detail about it, so I appreciate the follow-up. The same individual asked, so how does the correct tax get calculated on an actual street address? Well, that's a great question. What we do, we take a street address, we do an address validation on that street address or that ship-to location. After that address validation is done, we actually assign that particular destination a geotag, which is a latitude and longitude coordinate. And then after that latitude and longitude coordinate is designated and assigned, we will drop a jurisdictional sales tax map on top of that tag and determine exactly what sales tax that particular location has, and we will charge it back on the invoice. We can do this in under a second. Hopefully that was a decent follow-up for that question. But no, great point. I didn't mention that we do an address validation to determine destination.
Jordan, another question about shopping cart that you support. Do you also support 3D cart?
Yes, 3D cart, Magento, Pinnacle cart, the list goes on and on. ShopSite, Uber cart, Drupal Commerce, AmeriCommerce. We've got well over 125 shopping cart integrations. In fact, we're probably closer to, we're probably pushing 175 to 200 now. I'm not sure. So, yes, we do have, good question. We have a lot of our shopping cart integrations listed on our website. If you don't see your shopping cart on our website, feel free to reach out for us from the web. We have Get Started forms, or we have inbound call. You can give us a call. We can get your questions answered. I will also point out that if you are on a shopping cart that doesn't integrate with our solution, say you run a custom cart, you can actually tie our API into your custom cart using our SDK solution as well. Got a good question here. Does Avalara help determine nexus? Yeah, we can offer nexus-related studies and services. We have an entire professional services group. But before you even go that far, it'd be best, in your best interest, to give us a call, and we can go over your scenario and point you in the right direction.
Great. We've got about 3 more minutes remaining. So if you still have questions, or you still want to ask some questions, you've got a few minutes to do so.
Okay, I got a good question. If we process a credit to a customer and it doesn't go through eCC, how will we be applied to our return? I'm not sure if you mean that credit through the website or a credit through QuickBooks. That will depend if it's a credit through QuickBooks. The QuickBooks is tied directly into our system, just like eCC. So we'll make the proper notations in our system. Say you did a transaction in December and you processed a credit in January. We'll notate it as a prior payment on your return when your January return is filed in February. So we can handle that. I'm not sure I understand the last question. Something about QuickBooks POS, which we don't integrate with, and how AvaTax interfaces with it. Like I did mention, we do not have an integration at this time, and I do not believe there's one planned for QuickBooks POS.
I think I clarify, yes, to answer Andrew's question and follow with Jordan. Though AvaTax Avalara does not integrate with QuickBooks Point of Sale, eCC Desktop does, so you can still use the AvaTax within eCC Desktop to calculate the sales tax and then post it to your QuickBooks Point of Sale.
Yeah, that would work. As long as anything that's integrated with QuickBooks POS would go through eCC, that would work fine. But we just don't have a direct integration with QuickBooks POS, just like we don't have an integration with the BigCommerce.
And I think we have 1 minute left, and I'd like to just thank Jordan for presenting today. And if you'd like to follow up with him, Jordan, if you can please provide your contact information real quick, and we'll let the customer attendees know.
Absolutely. Everybody, sorry I don't have my slide handy for this, so I'll repeat it a couple times. My email is Jordan, Jordan, .lang, that's L-A-N-G, at Avalara.com, and that's A-V-A-L-A-R-A. Again, that's Jordan, Jordan, .lang, L-A-N-G, at Avalara.com. And if you want to give me a call direct, the number here for Avalara is 206-826-4900. And then my extension is 1418. And again, that's 206-826-4900, extension 1418. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And just a reminder, this webinar is recorded, and we will post it on our website at webgility.com. And if you missed out on anything, we are going to have another follow-up webinar similar to this in January. I know this is a busy holiday season for a lot of people, so thank you for attending, and looking forward to hearing from you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda.
Everyone.
Thank you, Allegra.
Thank you, Jordan. Thanks, Brenda.